$10 billion. That is what Amazon Web Services just committed to spending in Madison County, Mississippi, a state where the median household income barely cracks $48,000 a year. It is the single largest private investment in Mississippi's history, not by a small margin, by a staggering one. The previous record was Continental Tire's announcement of a roughly $1.45 billion plant in Hinds County back in 2022. Amazon's commitment is nearly 7 times that size, and it raises a question that no politician in Jackson seems eager to answer honestly. Can one of America's most economically fragile states actually absorb a project of this magnitude without breaking? Here's what happened. In January of 2025, Amazon Web Services confirmed plans to build a hyperscale data center campus on roughly 1,400 acres in Madison County, just north of the state capital. Governor Tate Reeves stood alongside AWS executives and called it an once-in-a-generation moment for Mississippi. He said the deal proved that Mississippi could compete with any state in the country for transformative investment. AWS Vice President of Global Data Centers, Kevin Miller, said the project would bring long-term economic benefits to the region, citing the state's business-friendly climate, available land, and the commitment to working with Amazon on infrastructure development. The campus is expected to create roughly 1,000 permanent, high-paying jobs, including roles in data center operations, engineering, and facility management. It will also create thousands of construction positions over the build-out period, which will unfold across multiple phases over the coming years. But the backdrop here is critical. Mississippi ranks dead, last or near last, among all 50 states in per capita income, educational attainment, and health outcomes. Its gross domestic product is the smallest in the country at roughly $130 billion. To put Amazon's commitment in perspective, $10 billion represents roughly 7.5% of the entire state's annual economic output. Nothing at this scale has ever landed in Mississippi, and the state fought hard to win it. Mississippi reportedly offered Amazon Web Services a generous incentive package that included tax exemptions, infrastructure commitments, and workforce training support. Exact figures on the full package have not been publicly itemized in detail, but state officials confirmed that multiple agencies coordinated to assemble a competitive bid. They were up against other states in the Southeast and beyond, places with more developed infrastructure, bigger talent pools, and deeper experience hosting hyperscale facilities. Mississippi won anyway. The question is why? The answer reveals something important about where the data center industry is headed. Northern Virginia has been the epicenter of American data center development for over 2 decades. Loudoun County alone hosts more data center capacity than any other jurisdiction on the planet. But Virginia is hitting a wall. Dominion Energy, the region's primary utility, has struggled to keep up with the explosive power demands of new facilities. Wait times for grid connections in Northern Virginia have stretched beyond 4 years in some cases. Local governments are pushing back on noise, water usage, and land consumption. Moratoriums on new data center construction have been floated in multiple Virginia jurisdictions. The same pressure is mounting in established markets like Central Ohio, suburban Phoenix, and parts of Oregon. Power is the bottleneck. States that can offer abundant, reliable electricity with room to grow are suddenly in play. Mississippi fits that profile in ways that would have seemed absurd even 5 years ago. The state has excess generation capacity. Entergy Mississippi, the dominant utility, operates a mix of natural gas and nuclear generation that gives it headroom. Most grids and data center hotspots simply do not have. Land is cheap, permitting is fast, labor costs are low, and the political environment is almost frictionless, with no serious opposition to large industrial projects and no organized resistance from neighbors worried about property values in Madison County, the way there might be in a wealthy Virginia suburb. For Amazon Web Services, Mississippi offers something increasingly rare: speed. The ability to get shovels in the ground and power flowing without years of regulatory trench warfare. But critics argue that Mississippi is giving away too much. Economic development researchers have long questioned whether massive incentive packages for data centers deliver proportional returns. 1,000 permanent jobs is significant for Madison County, but relative to a $10 billion investment, the jobs per dollar ratio is thin. Data centers are capital intensive, not labor intensive. They require enormous amounts of electricity and water, but relatively few people to operate once built. A report from Good Jobs First, a nonprofit that tracks corporate subsidies, has repeatedly found that data center incentive deals across the country tend to generate fewer jobs per public dollar spent than almost any other category of economic development. Mississippi taxpayers, many of whom live in communities with crumbling roads, underfunded schools, and strained hospitals, are effectively subsidizing a $1 trillion company's infrastructure expansion. Governor Reeves and state legislators counter that the multiplier effects are enormous. Construction spending, supply chain development, property tax revenue, and the signal it sends to other companies considering Mississippi all matter. That last point may be the most valuable. If Amazon builds here, others might follow. There is also the infrastructure question. Madison County sits in the Jackson metropolitan area, a region that has been in the national spotlight for all the wrong reasons. In 2022, Jackson's water system collapsed, leaving nearly 150,000 residents without safe drinking water for weeks. The crisis exposed decades of deferred maintenance and underinvestment in basic infrastructure across the region. Data centers consume vast quantities of water for cooling. Some hyperscale campuses use more than 1 million gallons per day. Amazon Web Services is committed to being water positive by 2030, meaning it plans to return more water to communities than its operations consume. But that pledge is global, not site-specific. Whether Madison County's water infrastructure can support a facility of this scale without straining resources for existing residents remains an open and uncomfortable question. Similarly, while Entergy Mississippi has generation capacity today, a $10 billion campus at full build-out could draw hundreds of megawatts, potentially requiring new transmission lines, substation upgrades, and generation investments that take years and cost billions of dollars. The workforce angle is equally complex. Amazon Web Services says its permanent positions will pay well above the state median. That is almost certainly true. Data center technician roles nationally average between $60,000 and $90,000 a year, and engineering positions pay considerably more. But Mississippi's workforce pipeline for these roles is thin. The state's universities and community colleges are not currently producing large numbers of graduates with the specific certifications and technical training that hyperscale data center operations demand. Amazon Web Services has announced partnerships with local educational institutions to develop training programs, and the state has committed workforce development funds to support the effort. Whether those programs can scale fast enough to fill 1,000 specialized roles with Mississippi residents, rather than imported talent from other states, will determine how much of this investment actually sticks in local communities. For the people of Madison County and the broader Jackson Metro, the stakes are intensely real. Construction spending alone could inject hundreds of millions of dollars into a regional economy that desperately needs it. Local businesses, hotels, restaurants, equipment suppliers, and concrete companies stand to benefit immediately. Property values near the campus will almost certainly rise, which is a windfall for existing homeowners, but a potential squeeze for renters in a market with limited affordable housing stock. If the project succeeds and attracts a cluster of supporting businesses, such as fiber providers, backup power companies, and security firms, it could reshape the economic identity of a region that has been synonymous with poverty and decline for generations. If it stumbles, if power delivery lags, if water becomes a flashpoint, if the workforce never materializes locally, Mississippi will have handed out generous incentives for a campus that enriches Amazon shareholders while leaving the state's fundamental challenges untouched. What is undeniable is that the map of American data center investment is being redrawn in real time. Virginia's dominance is eroding. States like Mississippi, Indiana, and even Louisiana are emerging as serious contenders because they have the one thing the industry cannot function without: available power. Amazon's bet on Mississippi is not charity. It is a calculated infrastructure play driven by grid constraints elsewhere, favorable economics, and a state willing to move fast and ask few hard questions. Whether that bet pays off for the people who actually live there is a different calculation entirely. Capital Flight is tracking what happens next.